another Sony VHS VCR on the bench. This one is an SLV555. This is the first VHS machine that Sony marketed, and this one here has not been touched in years. I haven't even looked at this, but it looks like we've got cocoons and stuff in here. We've had bugs in this one. This one also was in an unheated garage, along with that SL2000. I don't know what shape this in. It has not been plugged in. I have no intention of plugging this unit in until I get a good once over. Some of the things I've seen right from the get-go is that the capstan shaft is frozen. This was a very common problem. The grease dries out here. So this has got to be redone because this will stick. Another thing that's got to be redone on this thing here, besides get all the cobwebs out of it, is the P5 guidepost here is sticking, you see? It doesn't return. So those are two things right off the bat that have to be done before this thing can be powered up, or we'll have broken gears. We have to lubricate, clean the lubricant off and re-lubricate. Yeah, that's also sticking, you see? It's not being returned back, so that'll cause it to eat a tape. So we got to take this assembly apart. We have to take that assembly apart. We have to re-lube the transport before we can go and do anything on here. We're gonna use the good old Molykote grease to lubricate this. So we'll start by just taking apart the pinch roller assembly. So we have our dental picks here, and we'll just remove the springs. Like that. And this one's going to need a little more strength than the pick. That one comes off just like that. Okay, now we can take apart the pinch roller assembly. So we can take that off, and we can take this off, and now we can clean out this gunge that's on here. I'm just going to get a Q-tip here. We'll get some cleaner. Get my cleaner from the rusty can, and we'll clean off also clean off the old grease that's dried out, the old green grease that's in here that has dried out. This green grease was about as bad as the black grease that was used following, or was it the other way around? I think the green grease was first. Then they replaced it with the black grease, which was not really any better than the green grease. It still gets sticky, and after a few years, parts seize up. So once we get all that gunge off of there, we need to re-lube. With Molykote, we need to re-lube. That pinch roller looks like it's seen better days, but it should be okay. We need to re-lube the shaft here, so we'll just put a little bit on here. And the same with in the inside of these plastic bearings. We'll just put a little dab in there. And now we can reassemble that piece, and then this other piece goes on like that, and we can put the two springs back on to hold them in place. There we go, that one's on. And now we can use the pick, wherever I did with it, to get the other one on. This one's a little easier. Whoops, that's not the pick. This is the pick here. This one goes on a little bit easier. Like that. There, that's in place. So that's got that assembly lubricated. We have to do the same. We got to clean the gunge off this post as well. We'll just get some more cleaner. This time I'm going to use a different cleaner this time. Use an alcohol-based cleaner. And put the retaining clip back on the top. That takes care of that problem so far. We'll do the same thing for this. We'll take off this guide and we'll lubricate this guide while we're at it, because this one's sticking. I can do this before I even apply power. I don't know what shape the power supply is in. These power supplies did have a tendency to have bad capacitors in it, and if this one's never been upgraded, chances are it won't work. But I want to make sure that the mechanism is not sticking before I apply power, because I don't want to break any plastic parts in here, and that'll be exactly what happens. So plastic parts will break. This one doesn't appear to have the broken gears that a lot of them do. I got about 4 or 5 of these Sony VHS machines, and they've all got the same problem. They've got a broken gear. So I don't want to damage any more of them. Take a Q-tip and just cut the head off of it. It's just about the right width to ream out any of the grease stuff that's dried out inside this assembly. That'll clear that out. And we'll give our post here a little bit of lube. Get a little more inside here too. And now just place it back in place. Put the cut washer back on the top. Or no, this is just a regular washer. It's held in place with a nut, a self-locking nut, and then place our nut back on top. Now we will have to align the transport on this so that it doesn't chew up tape, so we have to get the height correct, but we've got to get the rest of the unit working before we even worry about that part of it. So say we don't know anything about the history of this machine, whether it even works, but we should be able to make it work. So we'll just kind of screw this down and get it kind of in the ballpark. Now you can see it is free. So now we can apply power. I have to find a Sony polarized cord. Fortunately for me, there are ways around that. I have a universal cord here that will plug into both the polarized and the non-polarized type of connector that Sony used. So I'm going to plug it into my isolation transformer here, and we'll hit the power button and see that it powers up, and it does. Well, that's a good sign. We'll just put a tape in this thing and see whether it plays anything. Gotta find a tape there. I have a broken tape. Oh, okay. So it's not loading. It kicks the tape out, but it won't load. Okay, now it does. And we have no picture. We have a clogged head. And now we have a clear head. Okay, so now I'm just going to check the guide height here and see how much damage it's doing to the tape, because I haven't adjusted it yet. Our tape is playing. If I pan the camera up here, you'll see that it's playing fine. So we have no more problems with this other than the guides were gummed up. That's all that's wrong with this machine. I was kind of actually hoping it was going to be more than that, but it's not. So I got to go down a bit. I'm seeing that the bottom edge of the tape is curling. So we just have to take the guide post down. I'll just move the camera so you can see what I'm doing here. So what we're doing is we're adjusting this guide post here, the one that I'm going to push with my. See that? We want to adjust that, and I've got it almost perfect now. We just want to adjust that so that the tape rides evenly around it when I go into like reverse search. There's no curl, which there isn't. So now, just by making that minor adjustment, everything's good. And if I turn up the TV here, and we look at the front of the machine here, we do have, looks like we do have hi-fi. Yes, we do have stereo sound. Auto and manual tracking. Go to manual tracking and just turn the tracking off here a bit. There goes the normal sound, and if I hit the auto tracking button again, the auto tracking light lights up, it tracks it, and we have stereo sound, and this machine is in perfect working condition. There you go. There. So that repair wasn't that involved. That was a pretty simple one. Pretty common problem on these Sony VHS machines. This is a very, very common problem with these machines. This grease just dries out. But if you don't catch it before it gets really bad, it'll break parts. It'll break plastic gears and stuff. So if you've got one of these Sony machines, do get in there and clean them up before they break.